Can AI fix what's broken inside of the pharmaceutical industry? Let's find out today's Welcome to the Artificial Intelligence Podcast, where we make AI simple, practical, and accessible for small business owners and leaders. Forget the complicated tech talk or expensive consultants. This is where you'll learn how to implement AI strategies that are easy to understand and can make a big impact for your business. The Artificial Intelligence Podcast is brought to you by Fraction AIO, the trusted partner for AI digital transformation. At Fraction AIO, we help small and medium-sized businesses boost revenue by eliminating time-wasting, non-revenue generating tasks that frustrate your team. With our custom AI bots, tools, and automations, we make it easy to shift your team's focus to the tasks that matter most, driving growth and results. We guide you through a smooth, seamless transition to AI, ensuring you avoid costly mistakes and invest in the tools that truly deliver value. Don't get left behind. Let Fraction AIO help you stay ahead in today's AI-driven world. Learn more and get started at fractionaio.com. Amazing special guest, Wendy Rockwell. Now, Wendy, I'm so excited to have you here because one of the big things that really interests me and one of the big challenges we face a lot in the AI industry is telling like the real from the fake. The things that have like real AI components and the things that are kind of mimicking it or that are just ChatGPT wrappers. And I can't think of any industry where this is more important than pharmaceuticals. When you're kind of looking at these tools or looking at these vendors, what are some of the thoughts that go through your mind or some of your process to go, there's something that doesn't seem quite right here? Like, how do you detect those things? Because that's very challenging for a lot of people.
And I'd probably bring it back to the context of where I am in the pharmaceutical industry. I work with health plans, so I spend predominant amount of my time looking at payer policies, how that lines up with patients that are trying to get specialty drugs, oncology drugs, where they don't meet the qualifications, they get a rejection, there's an appeal. Some of those sort of different things that go on in the industry. And I use it to understand where the payer's coming from first and to really look at the policies and then to look at the patient's pathway of getting access. So those are some of the realities that I have. And in going forward, and I just want to make sure that I'm aligned to the context that you're talking to as well. I happen to be in a startup where we are doing everything from the ground up. And before our systems get really old and how we do things, we're evaluating where we can go forward with the data that we want to have. How do we want to generate it? How do we want to be aligned internally? And what is that going to look like in the new space and time of having the fourth industrial revolution? And with AI.
I think that's kind of what I'm trying to get to is that challenge for people, which is there are so many options now, like AI doctors and AI telehealth and all these different tools, and there's a spectrum of usefulness. So from someone who's kind of on the inside, what are some of the things that kind of say this is interesting or this is not interesting or this is like, because I'm already hearing from some people like, oh, my insurance company used AI to deny my claim. And
yes,
it's like, then you say, oh, I can get this AI tool says it will help me get my claim approved or help me improve it. And I deal with this all the time. I test tools a lot of the time that are much lower stakes and then have a wide spectrum of it's fully AI or they're completely fake in their AI. I've seen both ends of the spectrum with low stakes tools. So you're in a much more high stakes industry. So I guess that's kind of for people that are thinking about these tools. What are some of the signs or ways you notice this seems good or this seems wonky?
I haven't found, especially in terms of patients getting access to medicine, or in the same case, it would be procedures as well. I haven't found any resource out there that really is a standard. This is the way you go. It's a very fragmented medical system. And I'll give you an idea how I recently used Claude in terms of this. I have my husband's a rare disease patient who had a hard time getting access to his medicine, even though he qualified, because the AI on the other side of that pharmacy benefit company was denying him, even after a lot of, I know the system well, my husband knows the system well. Over the weekend, I used Claude, for instance, an AI to say, my husband's up, he needs to get a procedure where he needs to get a special dose. And how are we going to do this with this company, knowing that we have obstacles of AI pushing back? And what Claude was able to do was pull up that policy from our PVM specifically for that disease state. And this is an example where we will be able to go in the industry to say, don't send another prescription in, do a quantity override. And then here's a PA form that you can fill out. Here are all the resources to get it through. and that will be your plan A. And then the plan B was a different drug. So that's where we will be able to go as an industry of understanding these nuances that are often hidden within the payers in terms of the policies and what their methodology of getting drugs approved. And the savvier we get, of course, on the other end is AI that is making the process more stringent. So I don't know, there's an opportunity for us to really get a handle on this fragmented system and pull the data together to make it easier for all parties. Payers spend a lot of time denying, but they're also wired in really old processes that have administrative burden they don't want. So the potential is kind of linking all of this information together. And that's where we look. We look at the patient journey all the time of what takes it from the doctor writing a prescription to the patient actually getting that medicine in his or her hands or being administered the medicine to really help them maybe fight cancer or treat their rare disease or what have you. And it's that process that AI has a potential to really smooth out. I have not seen a solution for it though, yet. It's coming, some hopefully.
I think that's the challenge, is that there's kind of two ends of the spectrum. One is that AI is going to find new cures and new medicines and allow kind of more access to people to services, but also most people's first experience is dealing with their insurance company, and kind of it seems like they're seeing an opportunity, because it feels like the only thing insurance companies want to do is deny claims. I know that I've never had a good experience with an insurance company, and very rarely do you meet someone who has. And it just feels like, oh, there's just another way, because if you get a person, there's a chance you can break through their emotional barriers and get some mercy from them, and they'll help you. But with an AI, that chance goes away, right? So you don't even have that 1 in a million chance that the person will decide to save your life. And that's kind of the real challenge. And I think that many people find insurance as a whole very baffling. There's so many companies and so many policies. Like, you're on policy A, but if you're on policy B, you'd be in a different situation. It's like, didn't you recommend policy A? And like, yeah, because we didn't want to help you. So I know for my family, we went on an insurance plan specifically to cover, because it covered births. And then when we had a kid, you have to wait a year before you're eligible. And then they go, actually, and the amount we were asking for was less than we'd even paid for the insurance over the previous few years. And it was like, well, then what's the point? So like with this challenge, I think that's really kind of the thing people are trying to navigate now. And I know that the most common way people use AI now is to interpret their test results, because
Right.
for
That
so
makes
long,
sense.
right, the results are
Yeah.
murky, and there's a huge gap between what the test results say and then what your doctor says. And having that knowledge can be like forewarned is forearmed. Like, you have a better chance, because sometimes they won't let you look at the test results until the doctor interprets. And I get that, because I've definitely misread a scan of my own and been like, I'm dying. And they were like, no, that's not what you think it is. That's not a shadow. Stop it. So I've done that too. But there is this dissemination of information, which is good, but then it also leads to paranoia, or everyone's self-diagnosing now with these like pretty dramatic mental illnesses or physical illnesses or ailments. And now you have to ask this question when people say they have something. I go, oh, did a doctor diagnose you, or did you self-diagnose?
Yeah, that
Because
can be really dangerous. Yeah, I agree. And I know that people do look at that. I mean, it's always, you always want to look at your test results with a trained professional in it. But, on the other hand, I think what's also really interesting is how physicians are really utilizing AI in their space and improving their own ability to look at patterns and diagnoses. I think that's really been a strong point. And utilizing it to self-diagnose, I would never say it's a good idea. I'm with a health system here in Colorado, where our results are immediate. And that was chosen by the chief information officer to make these results available to the patient, because here's the conflict that your patients always have, at least in the US, is who owns the data. So the data is not owned really by the patient. And so that's a really big factor of how do you collect your own data? How do you have that in front of you? In some other countries, you own your own data, probably like Switzerland, where you own your since birth, like your vaccinations, diagnoses, everything like that. But in the US, we have a very fragmented system, and that's not usually the case. So if you were running your whole history in combination with your physician, and you're looking at different things, that's one way to look at it. Or if you're pulling your genetic background, if you have different gene mutations that could factor into your health or something like that, that shapes things differently. But I'm always worried when somebody goes, just like people did when the internet was new, they would go and self-diagnose and go down that path. And I'm sure in AI, people are going down that path quite a bit. If my doctor missed this, but I think there's a collaborative aspect about it, especially if you do have your own data and you can make your own decision with your physician. That's kind of where I stand on that. There's enough obstacles in
Yeah.
our fragmented system.
It's like there's a certain amount of usefulness of knowing what these things mean. Like I've noticed that when I get blood tests at different places, they use different measurements. So it's like
Yep,
this one's using
sure.
moles and this one's using milliliters. And that alone can be very confusing for people to get the metric. Like where I live, we use complete different systems. So I
Yeah,
can't tell my scores to a doctor because they go, what are these measurements? You're 1,000 times too high. I'm like, no, they're using a different,
they're
they're
doing
using
it.
liters
Yeah,
instead of mil, and that's all it takes. So I think that part is really useful where you can interpret data, but I have also seen the further end where the problem with AI is that it seeks affirmation. So if you tell it what answer you want, it will give you that answer. It's like, I think I have this. Do I have it? It's always going to say yes. And that's can lead to like these Munchausen cycles, right? Where you start off thinking, I have a cold and end up going, it's cancer. And then like you start to get depressed and like all of these things before you get to the doctor. And the doctor's like, what are you talking about? You don't even have so you kind of have this agreement cycle, which can be very dangerous. So that's kind of one area I worry about. The other thing that I kind of want to dive into is like we keep hearing these things like, we found 500 million new cures with AI in the last week. And they're like, well, then where are they? Right. We keep hearing these big promises.
sure.
And my real question is like, how much does AI actually accelerate the discovery and testing and medical release cycle? Like, is it actually going to be faster? Because the trials can't be sped up. You still have to do human safety and all of those things. So like, I don't think we're lacking for ideas. I think there's other areas in the system where the problem exists more than the idea phase.
I think where a lot of the AI is focused on, and that's not my background, is not the science part of the pharmaceutical industry. However, some of the things that are being looked at are there generics already on the market that can be used for different diseases that we hadn't thought of and that are widely available already, kind of going back to your point. And then AI is also looking at different ways that molecules can be understood in terms of the disease state for the patient. Yes, trials still take a long time. They have to be designed. They cost millions of dollars. You want to be able to check out the efficacy and the safety before you even go down the route of, does this treat my disease state better than another medication on the market? There is the potential of a complete explosion of, different ways of treating diseases more efficaciously, safer, quicker, whatever that is, with this new age of looking at, with AI looking back in the company. And I see these large corporations that have already started to utilize in that that can bring that in-house, AI in-house, and start looking at the different molecules that they might have on hand already. Because there's plenty of discoveries within a pharmaceutical company that don't even make it to clinical trial because they don't know what to do with it. They don't know the direction. And if you look at the history of so many different drugs, it's amazing that they even like GLP-1s, like we hear about them all the time, the weight loss drugs. There was a scientist I knew about the Gila monster saliva, and that was just his knowledge. But can you imagine if it was accelerated a whole different direction where we could go with clinical trials and maybe not even have to do kind of hit and miss sort of scenarios? And they can be much more precision medicine. There's a potential of really having medicine balanced against if you have a gene mutation, if you have a group of genes that that are affecting this disease state that can be modified, not the gene modified, but can the disease state be modified with new discoveries? I think we're on the verge of really finding more. There's a potential for so much out there. And I don't know, it's exciting times.
Yeah, I always feel like there's a lot of excitement about discoveries. I remember when they were like, we're going to finally figure out the human genome like 30 years ago. And then it doesn't feel
I
like
got it wrong.
that much has changed since that happened, right? They were
Right.
like, once we get this, it's all going to change. And then they did the 23andMe thing. Once we have everyone's DNA, we'll figure out how to cure. And then like they went out of business because it didn't do anything. And I think that sometimes our eyes are bigger than our stomachs. And I know a lot of people kind of imagine that now, like instead of doing human trials, you can have an AI do human trials inside of its system, which we're so far away from, like so far away from that being possible, because the biggest problem with AI is inconsistency. Like you can ask the same question twice and get two different answers. And that's fine if you're writing a letter and very bad if you're doing science, right? Like it's like
There's a human
the
total that, yeah.
yeah, like the most important thing about the scientific method is it repeatable? Like
Yes.
That's the critical thing, and that's where AI kind of falls down. And I think that another area that is very interesting is we're changing our definition of privacy again. So I saw something recently, which is kind of interesting, which is that, like, I mean, when I grew up, there was a level of privacy that doesn't exist anymore. Now everyone's like wants to be famous so bad. They're posting videos to TikTok and sharing different stuff. And like, when I was a kid, if you were sick, there was a shame associated with it. Now it's kind of flipped in the opposite direction, where it's almost like a badge of honor to have a different thing and tell everyone what you have. So it's completely reversed. Not that shame is a good thing, but it's gone in the
I
other
hope.
direction of like from shame to pride. And so now we kind of, and now there's the amount of data people will share with an AI. And I've seen this having worked at a healthcare company myself, is that there's this assumption that nothing will happen to me. Like, I won't be the one lawyer who gets in trouble for submitting fake cases that an AI wrote, or I won't be the doctor whose patient data leaks. And it seems like we're so excited about these technologies that a lot of companies use hope as a strategy. And and everyone in the security industry is like, paranoia is going up. And certainly me, as someone who leans heavily towards the security end of the spectrum, it's like, we don't know if these tools are trustworthy. Like, the real measurement of if you can trust someone is time. Like, a friend you've known for 30 years is more trustworthy than a friend you've known for 2 weeks, because you have a larger data set. These AI companies have been around for 3 years, 5 years. And it's like, well, would you let the person babysit your kids? Well, why would you give them your most personal of medical data? They promise they won't look at it.
There's
Like,
no,
how
yeah.
many friends come over to your house and look in your medicine cabinet? Like, everyone. Like, everyone does that. So the promise doesn't mean anything, but we're so excited. And I've seen, like, buying cycles for medical companies used to be like 3 or 5 years for a hospital. And now they're like, we have to be faster because of AI. So it has to be 3 months. And the due diligence phase is kind of what's getting compressed, and the security phase. And it's like more and more of, can we do it rather than should we do it? Or is this a good idea? Or is this a long-term benefit? And it's like the mistakes are happening once you've already adopted a tool and you're kind of locked in. So
hmm
how do you kind of see that new world and how can users, I guess, develop a sense of when and where to be cautious with their data?
And it's something that, as a startup company that we're really profoundly looking at. I think we had talked about it. We currently aren't even using AI in our space because we really want to be careful about where our data goes and how secure it is. We're probably not going to build our own app, our own AI. And so now we're looking at enterprise or, individual, and how far are we willing to go just because of that risk? And I think the start of it, because we're a startup company, we don't have legacy systems that we're trying to modify or adjust to this new thinking, this new enterprise level thinking and incorporating AI. What we did put together was a council, like kind of a general council, and I'm on that, from different people within the company, looking at what are our processes, where are our gaps, like where could we accelerate, where can we go more, and how much of what are we actually, what's our risk tolerance, kind of going back to the data. Like, I might have a risk averse company, but maybe we could utilize to a certain extent and have certain privileges and make sure that we have guidelines and make sure we have the right training so that there aren't mistakes and the wrong data gets in the wrong space. I'm currently getting my doctorate basically in the fourth industrial revolution, where I have the dean of my school, for instance, is working on AI for the last 30 years. And we have this question in our classes, how much do you really share? How much confidence do you have in a public company where the CEO can change? And we're not very clear about where the data is going to go, or what could be shared, or how secure it really is if you don't own it, if it's not your own company holding all that data. And so those are there's ethics questions. What's the governance council really going to stipulate is enough in terms of putting data out there? What do we really need to do to synthesize? We're really, really, really guarded, even when we work with third-party vendors and ask them, how are they using AI? And are they going to use our data as a vendor in that space? And so we have to be really careful, because we have innovation, and innovation costs millions of dollars, and we want to protect that data. On the other hand, there's some clear avenues where we can go that aren't necessarily proprietary information that has a risk of being on the internet, that we can look at patient data, tokenize it, make sure that there's no HIPAA violation possible, and go, where could we do better as an organization, that patient journey, getting access to a medicine that's prescribed for a certain disease state. So those kind of potentials are there. And I say that every company is going to be a mix of, their risk tolerance. There's some, what I see over the weekend, I think it was Bristol Myers Squibb has just did an alignment with Claude, having all employees getting very involved in using AI proactively and actively within the company. Maybe BMS's risk tolerance is higher. They have higher security. So it's that due diligence on the other side, being upfront, obviously having a governance and teaching exactly how it's appropriate in the company and what can be used in that space or not. And then it's the cyber risk part of it. How do you protect yourself? Do you have the right sort of situation? And if your data does get out, what's the risk that goes back to the company in the long term? What are you willing to work with? And it's just a new thinking space altogether, because you're not just having people take data from a company and sending it. You can protect yourself for people in the company sending it out to their private email, for instance, and you can do the cybersecurity around that. But do we have enough knowledge of how to protect ourselves in this age where AI is used so prolifically?
Challenge with these AI technologies and with how they work now is that if you accidentally push one button, all the data is out there. There's no undo button. There's no reverse. There's no chance to stop the mistake. And we've really shifted our security posture in the last 40 years. When I first started working in technology, most companies gave you no internet access. So even
Right.
at large companies, you would just have an intranet, which people don't even know
Right.
that word anymore, which was like, you would just have an internal network and separate computers could access the internet. So even I knew a lot of companies where you couldn't even see your own company's website. What they would do is download a copy of the website the night before and you could see like a photocopy of it, but not a live version. So only some buttons work. So you could see like what your current promises and prices and terms and conditions and stuff were for support calls. And now we've switched to, well, we just ban some. And the thing is, like, bad website links change constantly. So this shift towards giving your employees more and more access to stuff, and it, like you mentioned with vendors, it doesn't even have to be you. A vendor can have access to some of your data. They only need one dumb employee to make one small mistake or to log into the wrong website. And especially because a lot of these tools now want to ingest everything on your hard drive. Like if you have Windows on your machine, it's like taking
Yeah.
screenshots, which I've had it like, it used to be how you would track employees if you were remote only. And you're like, oh, take a screenshot every 15 minutes. And some employees like, I'm not doing that. That's invasion of privacy. And like now everyone will do it for free, which is crazy. Like, I don't want anyone watching me. You know what I mean? Like I work from home and all those things. And it's like now we're just putting those into our systems and it's supposed to be more helpful. And we're kind of trading more and more freedom and privacy for these kind of panacea promises. But all you need is one person who has that feature turned on and then your data's out there and you just have to hope. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Artificial Intelligence Podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss another episode. We'll be back next Monday with more tips and strategies on how to leverage AI to grow your business and achieve better results. In the meantime, if you're curious about how AI can boost your business's revenue, head over to artificialintelligencepod.com/calculator. Use our AI revenue calculator to discover the potential impact AI can have on your bottom line. It's quick, easy, and might just change the way you think about your business. While you're there, catch up on past episodes, leave a review, and check out our socials. And that's seemed to be a lot of strategies. And having worked in security and worked with some of these larger companies, like they're not as security conscious or risk averse as you would hope they are. What they actually are is ignorant or excited. I've worked with companies in healthcare who sign up with a company. I go, they have no security policy. And they go, but they're really nice. And I was like, well,
That's not good enough.
that's a great defense that'll be great at your trial. I
Yeah.
will flip. Like when I worked on those projects, I'm like, listen, if I tell you not to do something and you do it, you get to make that decision. But I will, if they ask me questions, I will definitely not fall on my sword for you. If it wasn't my decision, I will just say, I told him not to do it. I will testify. Let's do the immunity thing. Let's all talk. But if it's something that's my fault, then it's my fault. But I just find that it's so exciting. And we're at the end. Everyone keeps thinking we're at the end of the AI bubble, which is the excitement bubble, which is like anything with AI gets more funding, gets more investment, gets more attention. And that's kind of the problem, which is like AI is not the answer to every problem. It can do a lot of cool stuff, but if I lock myself out of the bathroom, which I did the other day, AI can't fix the door. It's happened me twice in the past 2 weeks. You just forget that you locked it from, and it's like simple things that happen I think that's important to remember that there's a lot of reasons why not using AI is actually better than using AI. I deal with it constantly where AI will give me the wrong answer 9 times in a row. And then I'll say, this is the answer. And then it will forget. It's very worrying. And to think of like using, and I use very high end tools. So like, it's not the quality of the tool I'm using. As someone who's at the cutting edge of it, like I trust it less than most people, having seen what's possible and how easy it is to trick it. And it just opens up these new vectors where and now you have a software that can be social engineered or tricked or manipulated, or all it
Of
takes is one
course.
mistake in the coding. I think about this all the time. And so there is this really kind of brave new world we're trying to figure out. And I think what you're doing is very interesting. I think that you're someone who's at the intersection of two things, who's been on the bad end of having a bad insurance experience, and that kind of colors how you treat your patients, which I think is a good thing. So I'm very excited for what you're working on. For people who want to know more about your projects and kind of are interested in the direction you're going in, all those things, where's the best place for you to find you online and some of the amazing stuff that I've seen you writing about recently?
I think the only thing I have right now is just my LinkedIn. It's where I utilize most of my business or academic resources or to leave comments and things like that at this time.
Well, I'll link to your LinkedIn below the episode and in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here, Wendy, for an amazing episode of the Artificial Intelligence Podcast.
Yep. Thank you.